This in-service training video was originally produced in 1989 to explain the features and performance of the Vac Suction Unit. Since the VVAC's introduction in that year, customers have purchased more than 50,000 units, and VVACs are now standard equipment in EMS systems and hospitals around the world. Now, Laerdal Medical Corporation announces the introduction of a newly designed handle that is easier to squeeze, smaller and lighter, and includes a convenient storage space for an adapter tip. This new handle accepts the same cartridges and functions in the same way as the original handle, with the exception of the stroke stop, which limits the suction pressure by limiting the handle's travel. With the new handle, when high suction pressure is desired, pivot the stroke stop forward until it snaps into place. For reduced suction pressure, squeeze the handle and pivot the stroke stop backwards, again snapping it into place. In this position, the new handle produces the same pressures as the older handle does in its low pressure setting. With the exception of the stroke stop, the white handle operates in exactly the same way as the yellow handle shown in this video. The VVAC weighs just 11 ounces, yet has a capacity of over 425 milliliters. It can routinely develop a peak suction pressure of 380 millimeters of mercury and produce instantaneous liter flow well in excess of 70 liters per minute. The VVAC consists of a frame and a disposable reservoir pump cartridge. The frame features a sliding handle and stroke stop, which allows the suction power and the handle stroke to be reduced. The cartridge features a large diameter intake valve and a nozzle that increases in size to prevent clogging, as well as an exhaust valve with a removable high-flow filter element. A starter kit consists of a handle and 2 disposable cartridges. Also included is an adapter tip designed to accept most standard suction catheters, an 8-inch or 20-centimeter whistle tip catheter, and a double male connector. The VVAC has been designed to provide effective suction whenever and wherever it is needed, and to do it quickly, as the following sequence shows.
We're just going to school.
Looks like this. We're going to need to suction this guy right away. Sir, why don't you come on over here? We're going to have to roll him over on his left side, okay?
Right.
Straighten out his leg.
Roll him as a unit, okay? We don't want anything to twist here, so on 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Okay.
Hold him there.
Where's the person in the car?
How long has this gentleman been down, sir?
A couple of minutes, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, can you tell me what happened here?
Car split out, he's just driving down the
How long has he been unconscious?
Okay, Michael, set our airway clear. We can go ahead and roll him back.
Back.
You think they'll get an OP airway down?
Yeah, that's what he did.
Cartridges are packaged compressed by a paper sleeve. Just prior to installation, tear off this sleeve. Hold the frame with your left hand. Slip the oval-shaped hole at the back of the cartridge down into the latch on the sliding handle. Now, pivot the cartridge forward and firmly snap the nozzle into place. Note that the cartridge must be at right angles to the handle for the latch to accept it. If space permits, keep a cartridge installed in the handle so the VVAC is always ready. To manage the airway and minimize the risk of aspiration in an unconscious patient who has vomited, positioning the patient on the side may be the most appropriate first step. While much of the vomitus in the patient's mouth may drain out, suctioning of the upper airway is often required as well. To use the VVAC, grasp it with either hand. Pull the protective plastic cap off of the intake valve. Carefully position the padded nozzle tip as you would a tonsil tip. Check with your local medical authorities for approved protocol on how and how far to advance the nozzle. With the tip properly positioned, Generate suction by squeezing the handle firmly, compressing it completely. As the bellows expands, you should see secretions and stomach contents entering the reservoir. With a proper seal, a full squeeze suctions approximately 150 milliliters of fluid. Typically, this should take from 1 to 2 seconds. When suctioning is no longer necessary, the cartridge is easily removed. Hold the VVAC in your right hand. With the fingers of your left hand, grip the front of the handle frame. Using the heel of your left palm, press against the reservoir. Applying pressure to the right spot is the key. Next, hold the cartridge and pivot the handle away from it until they're at right angles to one another. By holding the cartridge steady and moving the handle frame, it's easy to keep the exhaust valve above the level of liquids in the cartridge, which ensures that these liquids don't drain out. While the intake valve creates an effective seal, replacing the cap is a further safeguard against leakage. In certain situations, it may be desirable to know the volume of fluid suctioned. Hold the cartridge level with the tip down and estimate the amount using the milliliter markings on the back of the cartridge. The intake valve is made from a flexible plastic that is soft enough to protect the patient but firm enough to seal securely. The slots on either side prevent the tip from grabbing onto the throat itself. This valve can accommodate particles up to a ½ inch or 12 millimeters. If you feel a clog and a firm squeeze does not clear it, it is easily dealt with. With the handle still squeezed, remove the VVAC from the patient's mouth. Look for a large chunk. Push it through or pull it off, and you're ready to resume suctioning. The exhaust valve has been designed to resist clogging and has been positioned to limit the possibility of its becoming clogged. A high-flow filter is built into the exhaust valve cap. This filter is not a bacteriostatic filter, nor will it prevent liquids from draining out of the exhaust valve. However, it does absorb much of the liquid in the exhaust air. If liquid is pumped out the exhaust valve, depending on its viscosity, the filter element can become clogged. In this situation, the cap will usually pop free, moving the filter element, allowing the device to continue to function. The cap can also be flipped up by hand. Note that if a partially filled VVAC is held so that the exhaust valve is beneath the surface of liquids in the cartridge, these liquids may enter the exhaust valve and can drain through it or be pumped through it. To avoid this, at all times keep the exhaust valve up above the level of fluids. Should the 425 milliliter cartridge become completely filled, the VVAC continues to perform by pumping liquids through the exhaust valve. While the recoil of the handle may be slowed, suction power is actually increased since there is no airspace to pump down. The VVAC can provide a range of suction pressures. Squeezing the handle slowly produces low pressures. If needed, the handle can be squeezed rapidly to produce higher pressures. With the cartridge partially filled, peak suction pressures of 380 millimeters of mercury are typical. The black stroke stop allows you to limit the maximum amount of suction pressure for situations such as pediatric usage. With the handle squeezed, pull up and back, popping it out of its positioning slot. It's now free to move and can be snapped into either of the two other slots. The middle slot limits suction pressure to approximately 185 millimeters of mercury. The rear slot offers the lowest suction pressure with an average of approximately 120 millimeters of mercury. The VVAC has been designed to work effectively with suction catheters. Catheters may be appropriate for use with children or for suctioning through endotracheal and tracheostomy tubes. An adapter tip is provided that fits snugly over the intake valve. This adapter accepts the various plastic connectors used on most suction catheters. For catheters with female fittings, a double-ended male connector is available. Note that if the suction catheter you will be using has a thumb port, this should be sealed prior to use with a piece of non-porous tape. A short catheter with a whistle tip is included with each VVAC starter kit for first responders who may not have suction catheters available. Push the connector firmly into the adapter. Note, the use of suction catheters slows the flow of liquids into the cartridge, but does not diminish the suction pressure. This means that the suction produced by expanding the bellows completely will last for several seconds if the handle is not released. One area where the VVAC may be useful is in the collection of unknown materials for evaluation relative to their hazardous waste potential. The VVAC is made of polypropylene, polyethylene, and silicone plastics that are appropriate for handling most hazardous materials. Be sure to take all appropriate hazmat precautions as determined by local protocol. Note, because there is no chance for a spark, it can be used safely, even around flammable or explosive materials.